spouts, which we're not actually talking about because we're not making teapots, are we?
No, but that's a side gig that you're
Yeah. Okay, mugs. Look, they're simple little things.
And
14 ounce. I don't know where that came from, but it did.
I know, not 16.
No, I know.
You need that
Well,
one, yeah.
the opening for my teapot / container is 3 3/16.
Oh no.
Where did that come from?
Wow.
I do know where it came from actually, but that's all right. Not a story. So that's just a simple open it up, screw at the bottom. I'm going to do this one slower next time, but the reason I'm doing this is because I want to make a pigeon pear for the one I made last July. Which is sitting at home ready to be biscued.
I like the bubbles.
Yeah, so do I. Get it right, they can be fun. Bloody wheels.
it is a fact, isn't it?
This is why I can buy one of these, even though I know they're beautiful wheels.
Do they have no other options for?
I don't think so. Must admit, I haven't looked into it all that much,
Yeah.
all that well, but now, this one will be slower but and more considered because it's. I didn't, to make that in a demonstration type context, you're never going to get that spontaneity, that freedom in it, because you have to make that in the moment, for want of a better way of putting it.
You're just digging your finger in.
Yeah, it's that and the speed of throwing it, and the fact that I've pinched the rim so it's going to wobble up and down.
You threw it quite slowly.
That one there,
Quickly.
that was quick, I thought. Rod and I, the first bloke I used to work with, never worked for Rod, worked with him out in McLarenvale. We used to have a competition. He could throw a mug in less than 60 seconds. Like I said, production was production, and when you're dealing with 20 or 30 galleries, you've got to make it and get it out quickly. All those galleries don't exist, by the way, anymore, and shops.
What sort of shops? What were they?
Oh, they were for everything from country craft shops to relatively sophisticated shops in the city. Rod and I, twice a year, we would load up a panel van, the classic old panel vans, to the gunnels, like hundreds of pots, and go to Canberra, out to Gundaroo, and sell a lot to one store. Hundreds and hundreds of pots. And they take the lot, and we go back again in 6 months' time with the same load.
Wow.
That's when pots used to sell.
Yeah, it's so different. Not as much commercial stuff around then. Well,
Oh, of course there was, but there was a real thing about handmade pots.
I think it will come back. I actually,
It has in a way, but not to the same extent.
no.
Now here's that motion again, or that movement again, pinching the wall of the pot and just lifting it up. How many shapes are there for a mug? You know,
It's lovely opening a cupboard and deciding, ooh, which one do I feel like? And they're all a bit different.
So it's like, oh no, it's a bit small. Oh, I want a bit wider.
Such a first world problem, isn't it?
Isn't it?
yeah, exactly.
That's not Cairns, is it? 33? No. That's lovely, that glaze on that.
Oh God, I don't know. I've tried so many clays over the last few years. I don't know what it is anymore. The actual form itself is actually quite irrelevant, as I said, because what I want to do is show you how to pull handles. That's the most important aspect of this. That system's looking better and better.
Yeah, it's going to be small sizes.
Now a jug.
I was always told, I thought the wheel had to be bone dry before you put a lump of clay on it, otherwise it'll go flying.
You throw it hard enough, it won't.
Okay.
You'll stick to it. Splash everything around you, but
You need a bit of clay on there too.
yeah,
Is that
Yeah,
bit of
I
guide
think
as
it's
well?
clay,
no,
but-
it's just there, so just chuck it on there.
Chuck it up. That's
Yeah. So the jug form I'm going to make is one that I used to make years ago.
You usually put
No, I'm not.
handles on, don't you?
Hmm?
You always put handles on most of the time.
Yeah. Well, if I'm making a hot that needs a handle, yes, definitely.
On a little one, I like no handle. Just grab the whole thing and tip it with it. Are we talking about cups or?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. I'm mostly like handle. Occasionally I like holding the hog. I want to make some of those turkish ones, like an arrowheads.
Yes.
Because they're big. And I'm trying to drink a lot and you're burning your hand.
So I'm trying to think about what actually shape I'm going to make as I do all this. I think I might put a curve in it. Now the spout, which I'm not going to do now because it's still a bit too soft, but I'm going to put this edge on it. You've probably seen this before. And the whole idea is that when the spout is put on,
It doesn't drip.
so they say, you know, and
What edge? What do you mean?
okay, it's that angled edge.
Oh, the angle. Oh,
So
okay.
when that spout is then applied,
Yeah.
that edge there is going to be more up and down.
Yep.
Okay. And in theory, it's supposed to not drip.
So it doesn't look angled on here once it's
No,
finished.
that's a different form.
Oh.
I'm making a different sort of.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah, there's lots of different ways of doing it, and I'm just going to do one. Well, I might do a couple of them over the course of the weekend or a week, or 4 days.
But that one wouldn't drip.
Oh yeah, it will. Paul said the other day, I'm tired of your jugs that drip all the time, especially when I've got soy sauce in them, you know, and I think you should throw them away.
There's an art to each one that I've made. You have to go slow with that one and sort of fast.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know how to do it.
You know, probably shouldn't say this, but when we were selling teapots directly from the workshop, they'd say, do they drip? No, they're fine. So you fill it with water and you pour and you quickly pull back when you're finishing it off. It
Yeah.
didn't drip
Yeah.
until they got home and tried it and it dripped.
Yeah. Need a little guide with it.
I've always thought the best teapots in the world for not dripping are those old cheap aluminium ones with a really, really fine edge on them.
oh, they're so cute. I've got
But
the
they are
tiny
cute
pink
actually.
one.
There's a certain cuteness about them, but they don't drip. They're wonderful like that.
Is it because they're so thin?
Yeah, so fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The spout is.
Yeah, exactly. So the liquids, you've got to cut off. It just pulls back.
Yeah, it's starting to get cool now.
Or it's just got one cup in it and there's nothing left in it to drip.
Yeah.
That's the arse of it.
Good one, Sadie. Seriously, I wouldn't go through that process at my own workshop
What process?
of getting that wheel off the
Oh.
off the wheel here. Okay, this is a little container because we're not making teapots.
You're making,
A little container,
yeah.
right?
How much weighs?
This is about 2.5 pounds. Probably a bit big, but it'll be fine. For the container I'm talking about, not the teapot. Can I just reiterate again this thing about bracing your hands? As that's coming out, this finger is against there. Those two, I'm pushing against those two things there, so it's making a very strong action, if you like. You see that?
Yeah.
Sometimes I put a foot on these, but I'm not going to do it this time around.
So if you're not putting your foot on it, what have you got? 0.5 centimetre? How much do you usually have?
3/8 of an inch.
That's too much at the moment, so shut up.
Oh, I'm going to the other side.
As I was saying to Carolyn earlier, I made a transition from a pound of mince to whatever a pound is. I think it's 2.2 kilos, isn't it?
Yeah.
1 pound is 2.2 grams. Yeah, whatever
No,
it is.
2.2 pounds to a kilo.
Yeah. So anyway, I made a transition to the local butcher shop and that sort of thing when it all changed, and I can't go back to it now. I wouldn't have a clue what a
Doesn't
pound.
make sense. Isn't that weird?
Because it's a visual thing too. It's a
Yeah,
visual
yeah,
thing.
yeah. That's how much it looks
I
like.
know what half a kilo of mince looks like.
Yeah.
You know, etc. etc. I know what 2.5 kilos of stewing steak looks like.
Yeah.
But measurements, yeah, particularly in the pottery. Well, see, the problem is my scales.
Yeah.
There's those old ones that do this, and I've got the weights.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm very analogue in some respects. And so they're 4 pound, 2 pound, 1 pound, 8 ounces. So that's why I still continue to use pounds and ounces. Like, why the scales are perfectly adequate. I don't need a new set of scales. Yeah, okay. Let's keep going. I'm going to make a pot that's a curved piece like so. So I'm going to want to leave the top of it to be reasonably thick because I've got work to do to get that in and out, at the top. So I'm going to work on the bottom. Would any of you agree that you can look at a potter's work and make a bit of an assessment about their personalities, etc.? The reason I ask this is because many years ago, Victor Greenaway, who was an Australian potter, ran Broomhill Pottery in Victoria before it got burnt down in the bushfires. And he did a workshop here in Adelaide, and when he talked about throwing a bellied form, his work was incredibly precise. It was very, very accurate. You can Google his name, and you can find Broomhill Pottery, and you can find the images of his work there. But he talked about to make a cylinder like so, you would throw the walls to come up, and then gradually belly out, and then come back in again and go up again. The idea being that when you threw the pot out like that, as it stretched out, the whole piece would be the same thickness all the way through. Now, I find that deeply disturbing, that someone could actually think that way. To be so obsessed with the thickness of the walls of the pot. Victor's a nice bloke, not necessarily having a shot of him in that context, but just that absolute preciseness. I say to myself, well, why don't you get a mould and cast it, like that teapot?
Because it's about your artisanal skill. You know, the enjoyment of chasing something and achieving it,
Yeah.
which is not the same as, it's not really about the thickness, it's about the process of getting thickness that you like.
And is he like that as a person? Do you think he's obsessed? And
I don't know him that well.
Yeah. What about yourself then?
All over the shop.
Yeah. Well, especially those last jugs you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They were more an experiment for the future.
These
No.
aren't all over the shop. I think they're
No.
James referring to some jugs that I made, they were slab built. That sort of shape.
And not precise and
No.
yeah.
They're about something else. Alan Peacock, on the other hand, just threw his pots. Big pieces like that, and the bellies would be much thinner than everywhere else. And the reason why he did that was because he knew that with his glazes, as he poured the glazes over the pots, there would be there's less clay to suck up the glaze, so it's going to be thinner glaze on those outside edges, like that belly part, and that contributed to the overall look and feel of his work. So he's coming at it from a completely different direction to what Victor was coming
He's
from.
still in control of that though.
Oh, he was in total control.
Which is what the thinness of the walls is about.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But I'm probably going to agree to disagree with you on that one, in that I just find that attention to detail, as you put it, let alone the skill involved in doing it. I think all of that thing's absolutely wonderful, but it creates a product, I think, that is just a tiny bit sterile, and that's what concerns me about it. And all I'm doing in having this conversation is talking about thinking about pots and how important that is. And for me, having done it for a long, long time, the thinking about the pots is almost as important as the making of them. And what am I making, and why, and what am I trying to achieve? I knew what Peace God was trying to achieve. I didn't know him super well, but I knew him reasonably well. And if you Google his, if you don't know his work, you Google it, you'll get an understanding of what I'm talking about. Complete antithesis of what Victor's about. But they're two different personalities, and that's fine. But I just remembered.
Talking about?
But I feel like what
Sorry?
you're saying, it's still
Okay.
control. I want
Victor Greenway?
Yeah, but the other one.
Alan Peace God.
So that the glaze is
In my opinion, Alan Peace God was the best pot this country's ever produced.
Oh,
I know it's
that's
tad
like
biased,
that.
but he made amazing pots. He broke every single rule. Every rule. What he did with clay, what he did with glazes, and how he fired pot. He could fire a cone 9 in 3 hours. He just turned the burners on, just let it rip. He pushed everything, and he made amazing pots. That's enough of that lesson. I do get a bit carried away with Alan. He's
Have you ever met Susie McMeekin?
no, I haven't, but I'm aware of her.
Yeah, I love her stuff. She's in this ceramic show in 2 weeks in Sydney.
Yeah.
That's Ivan McMeekin's daughter.
I was about to say, she carries the, not the burden, but the,
Was he the one that sort of started Stir? Was he one of those farmers?
yeah. Ivan McMeekin, Les Blakeborough, Peter Rushforth, and a few other blokes like that. They were the founding fathers, as it were, of the studio pottery movement in Australia. No question.
And was that at Stir or not?
Sturt was part of it.
No. And would they be how old, like 110 or something?
Oh, they're all passed on.
But if they were alive, they'd be that old.
Rushforth is dead.
Well, they must be, because she looks quite old, Susie McMeekin.
McMeekin's has passed on.
No, she's alive.
No, sorry, Ivan, father.
Alive.
Yeah, they're all passed on. But we wouldn't be sitting here talking about pots like this if it wasn't for those blokes.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, sure is. But having said that, they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't have done what they did.
If it wasn't for
Bernard Leach.
right,
It was Leach who was the
and then he wouldn't be here if it wasn't for
400 years of Japanese pot making.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then they wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the Egyptians or whatever. It just keeps going.
Where does it start and where does it finish? I know.
Yeah.
I know. We do have a debt to owe to our forebears.
Our ancestors.
Can I ask a question? It's a bit off this. What's the difference between a pigment and a stain? You know how stains are the powdery things that you can buy
Yeah, I know that.
in the little
yeah.
things? I know it's that, but what's a pigment?
But I think the term is interchangeable, and having said that, I don't know an awful lot about them. Might come as a shock to some of you here, but I've actually started playing around with stains.
Are stains and oxides different?
Stains will be a combination of everything. Everything in the glaze world is an oxide.
Yeah.
Everything. From traditional glazes, we're using potash, feldspar, whiting, kaolin, silica, for argument's sake. The oxides involved in that, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because it gets into a rabbit hole. You got in that combination, say Leach is 4-3-2-1 glaze. You've got potassium, you've got calcium, you've got alumina, and you've got silica. They're the 4 components of that particular glaze. Those oxides can also be in much more contemporary, so-called contemporary materials like stains in varying forms or amounts. And oxides like iron and copper and cobalt and manganese, etc. All of those things will be involved in those stains. I don't know the chemical makeup of those actual stains, and I don't think I ever want to know.
So if you buy cobalt, like people who just paint with cobalt, then you're just using an oxide,
Exactly.
as opposed to a stain that you might buy that might be a combination of
Exactly.
oxides. Okay.
Exactly. For example, I mean, I'm doing a little bit of work with stains right now, and the pink that walkers have is called a manganese / alumina pink. I'm thinking, how the hell does that work? And I thought, don't worry about it. I don't need to know.
Yeah.
I just know I want to know what the colour is at the end of it. So I just mix it up, test it, fire it, see what happens. Because that's another thing altogether.
This is what you put on bisque. Put it on bisque.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's pigment?
An underglaze.
What is?
I don't know. I
I
don't
would,
know.
I would take a guess and say the difference between the pigment and the stain is if you went to a chemical, because like my chemistry teacher at school just went crazy as soon as she saw that I was experimenting with glazes at school after I did the glaze course with Peter. And she loved it because the chemical reaction that you get, which forms the colour from the different oxides mixed together, I would say before the chemical reaction and after the chemical reaction, they are two different things. And I reckon the pigment would be crushed up after it's reacted. So you get the powdered glaze that would be after its reaction. So then when you fire it again, it's going to keep the colour because it's already been fired. So the chemical reaction has taken place and then it's powdered up after that. Because same with paint, you crush up the actual
Raw ingredients.
raw ingredients and then put them in, and that's called a pigment. A stain is a different thing.
You put it through the product rather than.
Yeah, so it hasn't had its so a stain, I don't this is me taking a guess. The stain could be before the reaction, which gets the colour, and the pigment would be
already
after
has
the
it.
reaction.
Yeah.
That is already,
And
so
then
it's already
brown
got its
colour,
colour.
yeah.
It's not going to change it again because it can't react anymore unless you put it with
And
another
the stain
chemical.
doesn't change either.
Yeah, so but you can put stains on.
Or you can mix stains. I mean,
Yeah, you can, if you mix your pigment on top of something else, you can
Yeah.
change the,
yeah.
the pigment. So I think that would be my guess at it.
Why don't we go with that?
Yeah,
Why
sounds
not?
pretty good.
I'm happy with that.
I think, from my perspective, being an obsessive glaze nerd for many, many years, and wanting to know what causes what, etc. Now that I've sort of vaguely entered the world of stains and pigments, etc., I don't want to know the chemistry behind it. I simply want to know what colour am I going to get.
Yep.
And the big thing has been, I'm talking about firing now at earthenware temperatures, got cone 03. The trouble that I had initially was to try and find a slip, and there's hundreds of slip recipes out there, to adhere to a leather hard object, or even just a test tile, and then watch it go through its drying period and then put it in the kiln and fire it to bisque temperature, then putting a clear glaze over the top of it and firing that to a glaze temperature. And watching all those slips just lift off, not adhere to the pot. And I know that I know what behind it, I know all the both physics and the chemistry behind it, as to why it doesn't happen, but I couldn't get it to work. So I jumped on the phone and I rang my old mate Greg Daly, and I said, I'm having these problems. What the bloody hell should I do? And he said, simple, go and buy a bag of Walker's number 10 powdered clay and just use that. And I said, should I flux it with some frit? He said, yeah, sure, that wouldn't go astray either. So I you can't buy it in a 1 kilo bag, you either buy 25 kilos or you don't buy it, because that's how it's made. They used to use it in here for slip casting. So I got a 25 kilo bag of Walker's number 10, which also comes in a bag ready to throw pots with. We used to use number 10 McLaren Vale pottery back in the early 70s.
And it's powder.
It's powder form, yeah, powder form. So I started doing a whole bunch of tests on them, and it's, excuse my expression, but it sticks like shit to a blanket. It's fantastic. Just a simple bag of powdered clay with, I worked out anything between 10 and 30% frit added to it to help the fusing process. I worked out 20% adequate. 30% is fine too, but 20% is fine. And I can then put that on at quite leather hard, reasonably thick, and it doesn't come off. It sticks.
I bought some slip for earthenware in a, you know, like an oil
Yeah.
bottle from Pug Mill, and that stays on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was going down the path of it has to be a traditional sort of slip form,
Yeah.
you know. And what I should have remembered, I'm getting to the lids in a moment. So I've measured that 3 3/16 there,
Inside.
inside measurement. Yep. And I'll take this off the wheel head, and then we'll make the lid. And in some ways, the lid's more important than the body. And I know I should have thrown this on backs. Never mind, I forgot. So we'll just get it off somehow.
I love that really round shape.
Yes, of course.
Oh, it's classic, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you want a little thing?
That's
to
how you
put on?
love your teapot.
Oh, yes. That's your back would be good.
Yeah.
Anything, doesn't matter. Perfect, thank you.
He still does classes, I think, Big Daddy, doesn't he?
That's what?
He still does his classes.